So you should know, you should just speak from your heart.
All right.
Yeah.
So Gawronski is up on our screen. She is right now in Los Angeles, and she is at grad school at UCLA. She is a 2018 graduate of Woodland, attended the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Right, Dia? Did I do good on that one?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So after she finishes grad school, she's then returning to the Air Force for a 10-year stint and will be getting her pilots, doing pilot training, become a jet fighter pilot or jet pilot. All different types of planes. I'm sure. Dia, do you have a preference over the type of plane you'd like to pilot?
It all depends on how well I do at pilot training, but I think either fighters, so like an F-35 would be really cool, or something Air Force Special Operations Command or AFSOC, like an AC-130. You guys want to look it up?
All right, cool. Awesome. Thank you, Dia. Right next to Dia is Shannon Raferty. So we'll get back to Dia in a minute. Shannon was actually a member of my advisory. She was a class of 2016.
No,
2015.
I was 16.
Shannon, class of 2012. She graduated from Woodland.
Did you just look at your notes?
No, I didn't look at my notes. But I'm old, so I have excuses. So Shannon was a member of class of 2012. She left Woodland after 3 years, graduated from Woodland in 3 years. She attended Johnson & Wales University, graduated from Johnson & Wales in 2 years. After that, went to the Peace Corps, and Shannon, from there you did some time, were you in part of Africa?
Yeah, I was in East Africa. I lived in Ethiopia.
Lived in Ethiopia.
During the time of the Peace Corps.
Pretty impressive. So right now, Shannon is working for the State Department. She lives in a place called Washington, D.C. She's located about a mile from the White House. That's where she lives. So pretty impressive. Okay. On the panel, we have Raquel Riley. Okay, so Raquel is a 2016 graduate of Woodland Regional High School, and she attended Fairfield University. Yeah. We have a few. Don't hold that against you. That Mr. Gary went there, please. Okay. I'm going to have to read off this, Raquel, because you have a lot. She majored in biochemistry and minored in Black Studies and Peace and Justice Studies. In 2021, she was awarded the prestigious Fulbright Scholarship. Look that up if you don't know what that is, people. Look that up. And relocated to Marburg, Germany. Wie geht es Ihnen?
Sehr gut.
Good. Okay. She was like surprised. He speaks German? Okay, well, she spent time researching novel treatments for a rare autoimmune disease disorder. She's now in her second year of a PhD study at Yale University. You guys know where Yale is? Okay. Yasmin, you know where Yale is? Okay, yep. And she's now, at Woodland, Raquel loved AP Bio class with Ms. Blasi, and being a member of Woodland Worldwide, she participated every year in the Run for Revolution. And she says her superpower is confidence. Awesome. All right.
All right.
You're up.
We did ask all of our panelists to share with us what they thought their superpower was.
And I should have said that for the other two, right?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Let's see. So Shannon loves chasing down stories for Hawk headlines, spending late nights in the journalism office. Shannon says her superpower is flexibility, but cautions us all to remember that boundaries are important. All right. Dia said, Dia was a member of the historic girls swim team who won NBLs for the first time. Mentioned, okay. So she wrote me a note. That's why I'm laughing. I'm not supposed to read that note.
No, your own words.
If you go into the pool, you'll see her name sprinkled all over the record board up there. So Dia has a lot of records, and Dia, one thing you'll know about her, and you find out, very humble, she supports girls that break her record. It's pretty cool. Let's see, what did she say? Her superpower is resilience. Excellent.
Yeah. The resilience, flexibility, and adaptability came up quite a bit, which I think is really important just to note. So I am very proud to introduce a woman who needs very little introduction. It's Woodland's own Laura Marvin Simoes. Some of you might not know that Laura was a member of Woodland's first graduating class in 2004, and we are so lucky that she returned to our halls after pursuing her undergraduate degree in business management and her master's degree in secondary business education. Mrs. Simoes is a teacher in our applied technologies department, and she is the co-advisor of the class of 2023. One of her favorite memories as a student was solving crimes in forensic science with Ms. Blasi. Mrs. Simoes says her superpower is adaptability. And because she has another superpower, which is being the mother of two, she does have to leave us a little early today, so we're going to try to front load some of her questions on the panel. Next up, we have Alyssa Varicio sitting right next to Mrs. Simoes. Alyssa was a graduate of 2017 and a graduate of UConn Go Huskies, where she double majored in biology and Spanish and minored in ecology and evolutionary biology. Alyssa currently works for Medtronic, she's repping, a medical device company as a biomedical engineer. Alyssa also started her MBA program this month, still found time for us, and hopes to eventually move into a management role in her field. While at Woodland, Alyssa was a class officer, a Hawk Headlines journalist, and a member of both the swim and tennis teams. And her fondest memory was the Disney dinner, which raised money for her class. Alyssa says her superpower is being a jack of all trades. And rounding out this outstanding group, we have Mary Vlamis, a 2016 Woodland graduate and another Husky. Inspired by her work as student body president both her junior and senior years at Woodland, Mary went on to study political science and economics at the University of Connecticut. She is now back at UConn, this time earning her law degree, which she is set to finish up in May. Mary then will take the bar exam and continue her work at a law firm in Hartford, Connecticut. Mary's favorite memory from high school, and I'm sure this was hard to narrow it down, was choreographing and hosting the Mr. Woodland competition her senior year. Mary says her superpower is handling uncomfortable situations with grace. So welcome. Give them all a round of applause. I told you you would all be impressed, right? So thank you all for being with us today. Our first question is going to go to Mrs. Simoes, and then that same question will go to Dia. I didn't mention a time limit, but for the sake of time, we're going to try to keep our answers to around 2 minutes-ish. Does that work? Is that okay? So, Mrs. Simoes, what inspired you to pursue your line of work? Are you happy with your decisions? What advice would you give to someone considering pursuing those same goals? And what might you say to somebody who is worried about pursuing that pathway?
So, all right, let me see if I can answer that question in 2 minutes.
I know, tell her.
So what inspired me to pursue my line of work was I've always wanted to be a teacher. That was kind of where my mindset was when I was growing up. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. So when I went to get my bachelor's, I got it in business management because I really found that I love the business world. I like how much it relates to, what is going on in the outside world and the economy around us. And I kind of just grew to love that, and I still had that passion for teaching behind that. So when I graduated, I decided that I wanted to go back to school and get my master's in education. And I originally wanted to get my master's in elementary education because I love little kids. However, with my bachelor's, I could only do secondary education. So I did my internship at Naugatuck High School. I actually fell in love with being at the high school level and connecting with the high school kids. And I feel that the classes that I teach are really relevant to kind of what's going on in the outside world. So I feel like my classes can kind of shed light on what's happening in the world around us, whether it be intro to business or accounting, even fields such as computer science are so important for students to really grab a hold of, those skills that you'll need to then take with you into college and your adult life. And I think it's really crucial for any student, male or female or anybody, to really hone in on those skills at such a young age, being in high school, because once you leave here, you'll need those set of skills. So I would say that kind of what pursued me for this career was just being able to inspire my students around me. And am I happy? Yes, very happy. I'm happy to be back here, happy to be teaching here. I see faces out here, and I've taught some of you, And really, it's kind of just where I found my passion to be is here. And what would I say to somebody that is worried about pursuing this line of work was the last question.
I think pretty relevant too today with education and teaching. So
Yes.
that's great. You could speak to that.
Yes. So I would say that, we are, if anybody's worried about pursuing this career, realistically, I would just do what you are passionate for. So if this is something you're passionate about and you really find, you love it, then I would not think twice about going for what you are passionate about. So if you're worried that maybe you won't be successful at it, but you really, really find that that is where your drive is, go for wherever you are driven, okay? Try not to have any worries about what others may think or what, how much you may make or, where it's going to lead you. Just find your passion and go for it.
Thank you very much. I see a lot of head nodding too, people next to you. Dio, we're going to go to you with the same question. I can repeat it if you would need me to. Just let me know.
I think I remember it, but let me know if I miss anything. So, what inspired me to pursue my line of work is, well, in 2018, when I was 18 years old, I mostly wanted to be independent and I wanted to serve my country. So going to the Air Force Academy, I don't know if you guys know this, but all the service academies are free. I knew that my parents wouldn't have to pay and I also would make money. And that was a huge contributing factor. But what they always tell you once you get there is the reason you go is not the same as the reason you stay. So once I was at the Air Force Academy, I realized it's not a place to be if you aren't really, really dedicated to the mission and the people around you. So the people around me are really what kept me there. I'm very, very happy with my decision. Sorry, you guys can all hear me okay right now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're great.
Okay, awesome. So I'm very happy with my decision. The advice that I would give anyone trying to pursue this is you have to be fully invested once you're there. It's a really, really competitive environment. I think that was really awesome for me just because I don't think I would have operated the same and challenged myself the same at a civilian institution, which is what we call a normal college when you go to a service academy. But everyone's different. I think I definitely went to the right undergrad institution for me. I know that now that I'm at UCLA and it's really hard for me to get motivated to be at it. But yeah, I would say just be confident, just go for it. I completely winged it. I mean, I ran a little bit before basic training, but I went in and I just got a positive attitude. I leaned on those around me. You have to have humility, like you're gonna just be brought down throughout basic training and you're gonna have to stick with it and make it through a hard 4 years. But I really think that anyone who wants to do it can, and I have no regrets with my decision.
Excellent.
Thank you, Dia.
You want me to answer about Piolet too?
Say that one more time.
So I went to the Air Force Academy. When I went to the Air Force Academy, I didn't know I wanted to become a pilot. You get your job once you're there. I don't know if you wanted me to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
definitely.
for it. Yeah.
To go to pilot training was really interesting because originally I was really, really deterred. I was like, I don't know if this fits with my personality. I was so afraid of joining the pilot community, and I'll definitely talk a lot more about this because it is a very, very masculine community. It's hard to be a very feminine person in this community and not conform. So I was really deterred by that. I knew that it would be really awesome and challenging to go to pilot training. I actually chose a different job, dropped an entire different, we call it job drops, dropped an entire different job and then went on the wait list for pilot and changed my whole decision. So I hope I end up happy with that decision, but that was definitely more challenging for me. I would say just go for it though, if you want to do it.
Awesome.
Thank you for that, Dia. Thank you.
Thanks, Dia. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we're going to start with Raquel, and then to Mrs. Simoes, and finally, Alyssa. If you can go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self? Is there anything you would change or do differently?
Okay, can everyone hear me? You had a very good teacher voice.
It's also a mom voice too.
So what would I tell myself if I was your age? Okay, I'll give a piece of social advice and a piece of academic. So socially, I feel like when I was in your shoes, I cared so much what people thought of me. And of course, be kind, be respectful to everyone, but at the end of the day, if you're firm in your morals and what you believe in, and you're gonna have opinions and people are gonna disagree with you, and that's totally okay. But just be confident in who you are, and like, I remember stressing about the silliest things at your age, and I just wish, like I look back and I laugh, and maybe you won't listen to me, but I don't know, that's what I would have told myself. In terms of academically, this is what I want to say. What I ended up going into for my undergrad was not my best topic in high school, or subject in high school. I got a 2 on the AP Calc exam. I think I got a 3 in AP Physics. Like, science was not what I was the best at, but it's something I really loved. And just to echo what some of our panel members have said, if you're passionate about it, just do it. Like, don't be afraid. There's so many jobs out there that you can do that will just be like a simple 9 to 5, and maybe you're good at it, but if your heart's not in it, it's not going to be fulfilling. So those are my pieces of advice.
That's great.
As we come upon AP testing, so thank you for that, yeah.
Mrs. Simoes, if you can go back in time, what would you do?
Really long time ago.
Tell your younger
Really
self.
It's a long time. I mean, I kind of had prepared what Raquel had said too. Basically, you know, being in high school, if I could go back, I would tell myself similar to what she said, like, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't worry about what anybody else will say. Just do it. You know, you'll get to a point, especially when you get to be my age, that you won't worry as much as what other people think. You really, at the end of the day, just have yourself to look at. So if it's something that you really want to do, I would say go for it. And that's what I would tell myself. You know, I always worried. I mean, being in high school, you worry about what other people will think in the decisions that you make. So try not to worry as much. Do what you love. You know, I went into college with, you know, thinking that I was actually going to be a lawyer. That's what I originally was going for, going into my bachelor's degree, but I changed it up after my first year because I found that I was more passionate for something else. So, you know, I was also very driven by outside influences as well. So I would say, you know, try not to think about what other people are saying or what you think you should do, and do what you want to do.
Thank you. Alyssa, you're ready.
To kind of piggyback off that a little bit, my main piece of advice is that it's very okay to change your mind. What I thought I was going to do all throughout high school was very different than what I did in college. I was pre-med all throughout college, graduated, decided to be like an event and wedding planner, did that for a little bit, then I worked in marketing, and now I'm in medical devices. So if you're not one of those people that like grew up your whole life and you're like, I want to be a firefighter, that's okay. Like, it's totally fine to change your mind, try out different things, and like find out where your real passions lie. And again, yeah, don't let like outside influences change your decisions, because I think that is really hard to do, especially when you're in like high school and college and you still have your parents as an influence. And yeah, just don't be afraid to make a big leap of faith if you have to.
Excellent, thank you. All right, I'm continuing on. That's great advice, thank you so much. Our next question is for Mary and Shannon. So let's see, it says, what challenges did you face as you worked towards your degree or degrees, your career choice, and or your position? What are the challenges? Do you face challenges related to your gender in your field or workplace now? And are these challenges overt or subtle? Mary, why don't you go first?
Okay. Hi everyone. So I don't know if you remember from when my bio was read, but my first degree is in economics and political science. Economics is a very male-dominated field. It's kind of considered STEM because it's math heavy, and beyond the challenges that come with needing to take heavy math courses, which Raquel can relate to, the way gender comes into play, I was not expecting when I was in college, because in high school and at a school like Woodland, I mean, maybe things have changed, but I felt very accepted by anyone, and I didn't even think about my gender and what that meant for me in the context of my peers. But when I went to college, and specifically when I was taking my economics courses, many times my male classmates would dismiss me or be surprised when I knew the correct answer, whereas the other male classmates were able to just say whatever came out the top of their head, and the other classmates would just nod along. And I know this sounds, I don't know if it sounds cliche to you or anything like that, but as a woman in a field dominated by men, you feel the need to constantly prove yourself, because men have like an established credibility that's like underlying and not spoken about. And it's a little harder when you're a woman. And then now I'm in law school, and I'm used to all of that because I did it in economics. I'm used to my male classmates not trusting that I know what is correct or talking over me. The biggest surprise entering the law was the way my male co-workers and my male supervisors have treated me. And this is not across the board. There are really great people to work for in the law, obviously, and great men to work for, but I've been working somewhere for months, and a new male colleague, like my same level of experience, comes in, and the male partner comes in the first day he's hired and invites him out to lunch. And I've never been to lunch, and I've been there for months. I was told, I'm in a trial practice class right now, and 3 of my classmates, who are women, my good friends, we all kept getting the same note from our professor not to speak a certain way, and my professor even told me that I needed to seduce my witness more because I was coming across too mean, which is very gendered, and my male counterparts, when they were presenting the same way I was, they were not receiving feedback like that. And so I just remember being in high school and truly not thinking about my gender as anything. Like, I was just like, I'm a girl, and like whatever. But I've been more and more aware as I progress in the professional field. And I think that a lot of the advice that's been being told about just being firm in who you are is the key to navigating all of it, because it's really easy to get discouraged when you have to consistently try to prove your credibility, and also be told to tone down parts of yourself that in actuality are parts of your femininity and your experience as a woman. But whatever, dude, like, we're here now, and so just embrace it, and you're gonna do great.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary.
Very much, Mary. Thank you.
Shannon, we'll go to you.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks so much for sharing, Mary. I agree. I think a lot of my challenges that I had written down about finishing my degree were a bit more universal. You know, aren't we all struggling with our finances in high school and college, trying to make it work, managing our time? So those are definitely big challenges for me in an undergraduate space. And then as I advance more in my career, I am noticing those gendered-specific challenges. There's definitely a big difference between serving in the Peace Corps as a woman than like a male, just in general, cross-cultural differences, certain expectations from staff and HQ. But then even a career in the federal government, it's much more subtle, I'm noticing, than some of the examples that you had provided, Mary. And I think that's because right now there's such a focus on diversity and equity and inclusion and all these amazing initiatives and powerful buzzwords that a lot of leadership prides themselves on. Not us, it doesn't happen here. But unfortunately, like it's just more subtle. Who's getting passed up for a promotion, who's getting promoted, what leaders are looking like. It's hard to point it out and call out a certain thing. Just much more subtle is what I'm noticing. Thank you.
Great, thank you,
Thank you,
Shannon.
Shannon.
The one thing, could I just interrupt? I forgot to say this. I should have kept to the script, Mr. Gary. You told me to go freestyle, but I should have kept to the script. Shannon is also,
She's in charge of the show.
Shannon's a financial analyst working for the State Department. She's in charge of a $300 million portfolio. So she has a few dollars.
26 countries,
She
right?
has
across
some
the world.
responsibility.
Yeah,
Charge of
yeah.
$300 million.
Big deal.
Okay.
Big deal there, Shannon
All
Rafferty.
right, sorry.
No, that's all right. That's great. That's perfect. That gives more context. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know sometimes those are difficult things to hear and they're difficult to talk about, but they're really important, right, to give us that perspective. Our next question is for Alyssa, and then Dia, and then Mrs. Simoes. You all indicated that you wanted to speak to the fields that you think are the most important for women to pursue. In what fields do you think that women are still underrepresented? What obstacles do they face? And why should they pursue those fields if there are indeed those obstacles? Alyssa, we'll start with you.
Cool. So the fields that I think women should pursue are whatever that individual wants to pursue. I think that it is super important to encourage women to enter STEM and all other fields where women are currently underrepresented, which are a lot of fields, especially like the ones that are traditionally higher paying. But as long as we keep encouraging women to enter whatever feels right for her, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, I think that recently there's been kind of more of a shift for a while, I think a lot of people looked down on women for wanting to be like housewives or entering more like domesticated fields. And there's been a little bit more of a shift recently, and if that's what a woman wants to do, that's what she wants to do. And overall, I think that by just kind of showing that a woman can be in any field is very important. Right now I am in a STEM field, but I've been in a lot of fields that are women dominated as well. And you kind of just have to leave it up to the individual to decide.
That's what feminism is, right? It's not about, being better or being dominant. It's about having the freedom to choose what you would like to choose. We'll go to Mrs. Simoes.
Mrs. Simoes, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes, okay.
The boys soccer team has to go to tennis team. The boys tennis team has to go to practice right now, so they have to be excused. Sorry about that.
Thank you, tennis. I know all of our
Thank you,
tennis kids
tennis
are here, male and female. Thank you, guys.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
They're excited to come, but they're past their status.
Yes.
Yeah. They're a half hour late.
Can you just
Thanks, guys.
run through that question again?
Yeah, absolutely. What fields do you think are most important for women to pursue? In what fields do you think women are still underrepresented? What obstacles do they face? And why should they pursue those fields if there are obstacles?
Okay, so
I love a multi-part question.
Can you say that question
Yeah.
one more time? I'm going to try to answer all
Of course.
and get into
I should have given you all a cheat sheet.
Yes.
You could use your notes.
trying to go off the memory. But when I was preparing for this question, what I was going to say was kind of what Alyssa said, like, women should pursue careers in whatever they want to pursue careers in. It shouldn't just be like dependent on if there's not a lot of women in that field. But I also don't think that, I also think that women should pursue careers regardless of if it's male-dominated or female-dominated. They should get the chance or opportunity to choose what field they want to be in. They shouldn't feel scared away from a field just because it's more heavily male-dominated and they might face obstacles like Mary and Shannon have faced in their fields, and they talked about women should be able to kind of go wherever they want to go. I do feel that women are underrepresented in certain areas because it still is very male dominated. And while thinking about this, I am a teacher that teaches applied technologies. I teach business. I teach computer science, accounting, public speaking. So I feel that sometimes having that woman figure teaching those classes might also open up or create more opportunities for girls to try those courses and see if they like it at a young age and maybe pursue that career. I think that having that opportunity, if I look at just this school in general, I'm really the only female. Most of it is male. and nothing against Mr. Magus or Mr. Cullen or Ms. Belinsky or Mr. Carangelo, but maybe if we had more women in those teaching roles, then maybe it would inspire women to go into those fields. So do I think that women are underrepresented, you know, in engineering, in law, in business? Yes, because it's still very heavily male dominated. But I don't also think that women should just go into those fields because it's male dominated and they want to, you know, just pursue it just because of that reason, but they also shouldn't pursue it because of that reason as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that emphasis again on teaching, where women are very much overrepresented in education, but not necessarily in every subject area, every discipline.
Yep.
So I love that. Thank you, Laura. Dia, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I'll add a little bit. What you guys both said really resonates with me. I think women should absolutely just pursue what they're passionate about. I don't think that should be limited, like, oh, I have to go into STEM because STEM, you know, is underrepresented by women. I definitely think that go with your heart, but if your reasoning not to go into what you're passionate about because it's male dominated and you're intimidated or you want to be surrounded by women or whatnot, I think that's absolutely not a good reason. I think that you should just go for it. I also want to add a field that I really would like to see, or not a field, but just generally, I would like to see more women as leaders in general. CEOs in the military, you can really climb the chain, and I don't have a lot of female leaders, and some of the best leaders that I've ever had have been women. So I think that's something to consider. Like if you have really good interpersonal skills and you want to figure out how to apply that, maybe look into fields where you can make it to a position where you are leading others. Because I really value when my leader, and this is speaking generally, but when my leader is compassionate and empathetic and looks after his or her followers. And honestly, I've seen that a lot more with female leaders, and there's a lot less of them. So I would definitely the advice I would give is self-reflecting. Think of roles that you would do really well in. I think it's really intimidating going into college and kind of deciding what to major in, or even if you're going into a trade. I would think about, like, what's the end goal here? So definitely go into what you're passionate about, but don't let silly things deter you.
I love that. I'm actually going to jump ahead in our plan here, because I would love to hear, Dia, if you could speak a little bit more to that idea. One of the questions we had asked all of our panelists is whether or not they believe men and women define success, leadership, or being a boss differently. And so I didn't know if you wanted to just elaborate a little bit on what you were saying there about your experience with women leaders in your field, Dia. Do you think that men and women define those things differently?
Absolutely, 100%. I think we can all think of general personality traits, and naturally we know what is accepted as good leadership and bad leadership. And what's so interesting to me is being like bold and confident and loud is looked at as good leadership, and it's also more of a masculine quality. And then, for example, maybe being too receptive to feedback or, you know, leveling with your followers is not a good leadership quality. It's looked at as like passive, and it's more feminine. So I think that there's a really interesting divide. I don't know who created it, it's just society, but it's been really hard for me in leadership positions to hold on to my femininity, and I think it's really important. Like, I try to still be my girly, normal self, but naturally I'm really receptive to feedback. Naturally I want to hear everyone out. Naturally I really care about my followers, but it's made me looked at as more of a pushover. So yeah, when I was thinking about this question, I thought of, there are really 3 types of female leaders that stand out the most to me. And there's one who is assertive. She's feminine, but she's assertive. She's bold, and she stands by her word. And half of her followers just think that she's mean and not a good leader, just because she's doing exactly what a man is doing, but she's being feminine. Then there's a female leader who does all of those things. She's bold, she's confident, she makes good decisions for her followers, but she's masculine. Like, she can, you know, dap her brothers up, and she says bro, and I'm really thinking of this pilot that I met who really made me insecure about who I was, because she just called me man and made me like a bro to her. And she will be respected. She will be like everyone's best leader because she's being as masculine as she can be, and she's completely conformed. And then there's the feminine leader, who she's completely owned all of her feminine qualities, but with that she has a lot of feminine personality traits, and she's too afraid to be assertive because she's afraid of looking at the leader number one that I mentioned, being looked at like that leader. So she's a little bit passive. She really maybe takes feedback too openly. People kind of push her around and she can't really take a stance as much as she should. So I think you really want to find out how to be that leader number one. I haven't figured it out, how to be leader number one to your feminine qualities and be respected, because it's really interesting looking at it through the military. I know I had a leader back at the Air Force Academy, and it took her about a year. She was leader number one. It took her about a year with the same followers to earn respect, and everyone loves her now, but it is really interesting how everyone perceives leadership differently.
Thank you, Tia. Was there anybody else on the panel who wanted to add to that? Anybody else who wanted to share their thoughts on this? Whether or not
having thoughts while she was talking.
we're having thoughts. Yeah, please.
Wait, I need to remember.
You need a
what I was
moment?
thinking.
So the idea of defining it differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this was reminding me of like the first question on this, and like the whole like girl boss.
What is a girl boss?
And Dia really did a good way of. I was trying to think about how to talk about masculine versus feminine. Like, okay, we all know like a man can have feminine qualities and a woman could have masculine qualities. Like, I'm trying to just talk about more like the energy of masculine and feminine than I am about when I use these terms in the future. Okay, so the term girl boss, it's chuggy, right? We don't like saying it. Anyone? I thought you guys would laugh that I said chuggy. Thanks, maybe because I'm chuggy. Am I chuggy? I'm done. All right. I really am. Wow. Okay. All right. Anyway, they're like all cringing.
Welcome to my life, Mary. I know. It's all right. You just go with it. Wow. Just go with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason why I personally don't like the term girl boss is because it insinuates by adding a modifier of girl before boss that a boss is not inherently a girl or feminine. And to be a boss, you have to encompass more masculine energy. And that's why I don't like girl boss. I think you're just a boss, and then it's whatever gender you identify as is another part of your identity. Part of your identity is you're a boss, and part of your identity is that you're whatever gender, and another part of your identity is you went to Woodland for high school. And I think it's important, like Dia was saying, to that when we're presenting in masculine environments, or also when we're presenting as leaders, to not be afraid to show our femininity and be a little softer. You can be sensitive and you can be empathetic to those you work with. You can listen and do things that are more stereotypically feminine, and that doesn't make you not a leader. The only problem is the men have been leaders for so long that that's what we think of as a leader. But again, like I said earlier, like women are now in these positions, and as women start going up through the generations, like we just have to be ourselves. Like when I look at some of the older female attorneys at the law firm I work at, they're not the first female attorneys ever, but they are early on in that, like women entering the law or women entering the workforce. And the way that they conduct business and speak is much more masculine than, say, some of the female attorneys in their 40s. And then now, like, you have me, this is what I wore to work today. Like, it's just learning to embrace that, yeah, maybe you're gonna get some backlash or it's gonna be uncomfortable when your, like, counterparts maybe have a problem with the way you're acting, or they're not used to it, or they are saying you're like a bitch or whatever. Sorry, I swore.
It's okay. It's all right.
No, they
We'll bleep it out on the tape.
And that's part of why, like, that I wrote my superpower was being able to be uncomfortable, because when you're a woman in these situations, it's gonna be uncomfortable to be yourself sometimes, and you just gotta like push through that discomfort, because at the end of the day, like, you're all you have, and you want to maintain like your integrity and who you know you are in your core. You don't need to change who you are just because you're in a different environment. But be professional, obviously.
I know, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, we had posed a question to the panel. So in titling this this presentation, "Girl Boss," I did this very aware that this is sometimes a problematic term, and that we do sometimes I hear it used in a very complimentary way, but that it can be problematic for the reasons Mary offered. And I asked the panel to consider a quote that said, "Girl boss is a sexist Trojan horse. It appears to raise women up, to carve out space for us in a working world still too crowded with men. But in reality, it denies us agency, it diminishes us, and it denigrates our authority." So Mary had indicated that she wanted to speak to this. So did Alyssa and Dia. And obviously it's open to anybody on the panel if you guys wanted to add on to that idea. And we're kind of mixing our questions here together a little bit. And Shannon, yeah, anybody here, can chime in if you want to speak to that. I don't want to give anybody a question they weren't prepared for, but like, please, respond to your fellow panelists is great.
I can add to what Mary is saying.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You good?
Go ahead.
So what Mary said really resonates with me. I think if someone called me a girl boss, I'd be like, "Are you kidding?" Like what I'm doing is really good for a girl, or like what I'm doing is just really impressive in general. And I think this term just really separates that. It's kind of like there's a lower bar set for girls, because like you can just be a girl boss. Like you don't really have to be a boss. Like we'll just put you in this category. So whatever you're doing is like only girl boss level impressive. And I think this term was definitely created because women who are bosses are pretty intimidating. So it's just to be a little condescending, bring them down. Like, oh, it's so cool that you're a girl boss. Like nice job. So I don't really have much to add. I think Mary really nailed it, but I just wanted to add that I don't think the term is a compliment by any standard. I think I struggled with it because I think being feminine and being a boss is really cool. I love that blend, and I really I think that feminine traits should be a lot more respected when you are a boss or a leader in any way. But I think the combination of girl boss is not. It doesn't have the right definition that is associated with it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dia. Shannon, we're going to ask you a question. You ready?
Yeah, I can
Oh,
I
go
can
ahead.
jump in actually.
I'm sorry.
On
Go-
number one.
Go ahead, Shannon.
I have a few thoughts, and then I do want to circle back to leadership styles as well. But I think couldn't agree more with what Mary and Gia have already discussed with Girl Boss. But something I think is so critical in these cases is the language that we use to describe our leaders, and specifically girl boss is kind of infantilizing. We're not calling it boy boss, it's usually men or guys. And when you talk about a group of girls, I'm guilty of this all the time. It's the girls and the guys. So I really try to be conscious of using those youthful terms when we're all women on this panel. You guys are young women. Again, you guys, I'm from New England. It's gonna die slowly, but it's something to be cognizant of as you climb the ladder. I notice it, and it's one of those subtle things where language does matter, and we are all equals, and you will be equal in those workspaces and in those classrooms. So don't stand for it if you don't want to. And then, really quick, just to circle it back out to leadership culture and different leadership styles. Yeah, I think you defined it really well in your 3 different examples. But I think it's good to remember that there is good leadership culture and bad leadership culture. And I think a lot of, men in leadership positions sometimes exhibit poor leadership qualities. They are mean and rude to their subordinates. You know, they're assertive, but maybe to too much. So yeah, I encourage you to keep sticking to number one. I think the biggest factor as your pilot experience is going to be time to like change those cultural shifts. And so it's less male leadership versus female leadership, and good leadership versus bad leadership is really that shift I'd like to see. So those are my 2 cents. I didn't want to cut anybody off. Thank you.
No, that was great, and I again appreciate that idea that when we gender things, right, like trying to move away from this idea of gendering anything, right, and like that, because that creates those barriers. So good leadership, bad leadership, doesn't matter who's the leader. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you guys. Mr. Magus?
Okay, we're gonna do, and before we do this, call the lightning round, the girls, female. Okay, the girls.
That you can gender, Mike. That's right. The tennis team of women. Yes. Thank you for being here, tennis. Thank you, Ms. Coach. So appreciate you. Bye, you guys.
We're gonna do our last thing. It's called the lightning round. We're gonna do the lightning round. So if you guys can stay, just hang in there a few minutes, some of you.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you for coming.
Of one of you.
Is that live? It is. Oh, done. I love it.
Okay, you guys ready? Panelists, are you ready? The lightning round. Last question. We'll go around the room. We'll start with Shannon, then we'll go to Dia, and then you girls can figure out the front. Last question. In one sentence, what do you love about your life? Take your time if you want to think about it. In one sentence, what do you love about your life? And it can be, I'm not an English teacher, so it can be a run-on sentence.
It can be. Multiple fragments strung together. It's fine.
Shannon,
I'll run on sentence for the lightning round, and I have to go first. This is a lot of pressure. No, I think I'll keep it short and sweet. I love the freedom to make decisions and do what I want every single day.
Awesome. Go ahead.
I love that I've taken every opportunity I've been granted.
Awesome.
These are a lot shorter than I was thinking.
You go ahead. Just like string out your sentence, Alyssa. It's good. You're good.
I feel like this past October I had like a really big shift in my life, and ever since graduating college I've had like a lot of struggles just figuring out like where I'm really meant to be, both like location-wise and career-wise and in like relationships. So I think the past couple months things have really been coming around, and right now I'm really just loving life. Like, things are working out. We really are. So that's what I love.
Hard work pays off, right?
Yeah.
I love the time of my life that I'm in. I'm young. You guys might not think so. But I like that. Thank you. I like that I'm at the point of my life where my adulthood is beginning, and I have independence. Like, I can provide for myself, and I can take care of myself, and that also means I can make decisions. I can do whatever I want, and I love that.
I had like thoughts as you were all talking, you know. I would say what I love about my life right now is that I wake up, my job is really hard, research is really hard, but I feel like I have purpose in what I do. And I also live on the beach, so that's
A life with purpose and beachside living. I can get down with that. To our panelists, we want to thank you so very much for taking the time and zooming in or physically coming, taking time off of work to be here and to share all of this with us. Can we give them a round of applause? We wanted to give a couple of minutes if people had questions from the audience, things that you guys wanted to ask any of our panelists. Any thoughts that you had milling around that you would like to share? Questions, things you're burning and desire to know?
I know a few of you mentioned that you changed your majors once you were in college, but what was that actual experience like going into further education with an idea and then having it switch up, and how did you deal with that change? I can kind of start with that. So I never actually changed my major, but I did change like my plan. And I kind of, so I went in as a bio major. I realized that I really missed the humanities a lot. Like STEM can, especially in college, can like really wear you down when it's not like your natural strong suit. And so I kind of like added on my Spanish major, and I think having that balance helped me cope with like the classes a little bit more. And then ultimately the decision to like not go to med school was a really, really difficult one. And frankly, I put it off for a very long time, basically, until I couldn't put it off anymore. And then making that decision, you realize, okay, well maybe that's not what I'm gonna do now. What am I gonna do next? And so that is kind of like where I struggled a lot the past year, 2 years in figuring out. And the only thing I can really say in like coping with that is just allowing yourself the time to make those decisions. And once you make that hard decision, the rest kind of just falls into place, because you realize that like you're following your heart and what you're really interested in, and things kind of just tend to work out after that when you're following like what you really want.
Is it almost like a weight off your shoulder and
Yeah.
relief?
Yes.
And you can breathe. Now I can breathe.
The
Yeah.
path of least resistance.
Yes.
Like once you just accept that that's what you actually want, everything just kind of flows from there.
Yeah.
Good question, Ellen.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Geary.
I have a question. How do you feel Woodland prepared you for your lives?
Oh,
I knew he was going to ask this question. I knew this was coming. I almost put it in the questions, but I figured I'd let you.
can I go first?
Go ahead.
I think about this more than I should. I've been like, you ever have anxiety dreams that aren't related to your current anxiety, it's just past anxiety? So my anxiety dreams lately have been about high school, but it's like, I was on the dance team, and it's like, I forget my dance routine, and so my mind has like been thinking a lot about my experience here. And
That's trauma, that's good. That looks good on the brochure.
but I
What
wanted
else?
to say hello to you guys too, so.
Mr. Minute.
Oh, Mr. M?
Yeah.
Hi, Mr. M. Woodland is a special place. Any alumni that I've talked to agrees, because, I don't know, there's something crazy here that, like, everyone kind of gets along. Like, your friends are in all different social groups. Again, I don't know if it's still the same. That's how it was when I was here. And like I said earlier, I wasn't thinking about my gender or anything like that. I was just being Mary all the time. And I had so many great mentors and teachers, and like the fact that Mrs. Gary just messaged me on Facebook to come in, or like I went golfing with Mr. Magus over the summer because I didn't know how to golf for a work event, and like things like that. Like the Woodland teachers are invested in you as an individual, and it's so special. And when you go, for me, when I went to UConn and it was a big school, that was honestly very shocking. And like the almost negative is that Woodland was such a nurturing place that the outside world was kind of like scary, daunting. It was a culture shift to find your footing again. But Woodland also prepared me to work really hard and be able to identify mentors and people who care about me, because I knew what that felt like, and people who were rooting for me. And that's what's most important, is to make sure you're putting yourself in situations where you feel supported. Okay, I got it.
That was awesome, thank you. So we should be meaner.
No.
Should we be tougher? Was that the takeaway? No. Anybody else? How do you feel Woodland prepared you for your professional experience, Rico?
Yeah, I feel like compared to, I didn't know this was like a special thing until, again, like I left Woodland and saw this. The amount of opportunity you have in a school that seems like pretty small, in the middle of nowhere, like the number of AP courses that you can take, like if you're interested in all different things, and like the teachers are really dedicated to teaching you that material. The number of clubs you can get involved in, like I've never met someone from Woodland that didn't have their foot in at least one of those doors. And like everyone, I don't know, just the teachers are really dedicated to making sure, like you said, you're not just coming to class and leaving, but they're dedicated to you as an individual.
Yeah.
So.
Woodland is a really special place. Like, I know that's kind of what they all said, but like, if you guys end up going to college, if that's your path, you're gonna go to college and be talking about your high school experience, and everyone's gonna look at you like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
It's very, very different from like a lot of people's high school experience, and you should definitely like take advantage of that while you can. And I mean not normal in a good way. Like not normal in a, like, have very close relationships with your teachers and all the opportunities you have. Thank you.
Dia or Shannon, did you want to chime into that?
I honestly feel like everyone did a great job covering all the talking points. Couldn't agree more. The teachers are wonderful. Did not appreciate Woodland until I left Woodland, but do feel like it did a good job preparing us. And in terms of like staff, excellent, and resources in general, I just remember thinking at the time we got cutting edge technology in our classrooms, in our clubs. They were well resourced. I hope that's still the case now, but
It is, yes.
I really appreciate it. Now that I'm not there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Woodland is a really awesome place. I think there's really a culture to Woodland, and seeking that culture elsewhere just gives you better quality of life all around. Sometimes it can be disappointing, but and I think just to add on to the mentorship that is at Woodland, I think that having so many mentors at Woodland really set me up to know that I can talk to mentors in the future. And that's another piece of advice that I would give to anyone in high school is know that mentors really want to help you reach out, like people, like talk to the person who's doing exactly what you want to be doing in 10 years. They're willing to help you, I promise. They're not too busy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other questions for our panel? Yes, Charlie.
I think my question is, how did you find, or I guess what was the best techniques that you guys used for navigating disappointing times in your life or disappointments in general?
That's a great question. Charlie does that.
I feel like I try to remind myself that every single day it sounds cheesy, but your 100% is going to look different. There's some days like I can't get my one PCR to work and that is my only goal, and I showed up to work and I did my one experiment. There are other days I finish my 10 experiments and I go home and I go to the gym and I do this and that. But like, you need the bad days to appreciate the good, and as long as you're hitting those long-term goals that you want, it's okay if that 100% isn't always the same.
Also with disappointment, I think as women, we're really, really encouraged to be independent, and that's great. Like, we want to encourage each other to be independent and like uplift other women, but one of the most important parts about being independent is knowing when to like utilize your support system and be a supportive person to others. Mm-hmm. So in times of disappointment, like you don't just have to rely on yourself to like get through it. You will have people in your life who are going to care for you and help you through that time. And that's one of the hardest lessons to learn when you're kind of used to relying on yourself for a lot of things.
Empowered women, empower women, and that's going to be the new title of this event next year, and not Girl Boss, right? So now we've got a new title. Guys, thank everyone. Thank you very much. Give another round of applause. And thank you all for being here. Yes, we so appreciate it. Oh my gosh, of course. You guys stick around. We're going to take pictures.
If you guys want our contact information at all, please feel free to reach out or hang around or something.
We can make that kind of, or stick and stick around and we can make that connection. Absolutely. Thanks for offering.
Shannon and Dia, thank you two so much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Do you have their address?
No, and I'm gonna email you because we have something to mail you because I can't hand it to you. We can't hand it to you right now.
We'll mail you, girls. You got women.
Okay. Thank you so much. Awesome. Bye. Oh no.